Welcome to What Would Sabrina Say? I'm Sabrina Dong, and I'm excited you're joining me today. In this podcast, I dive into mental health topics on relationships and overall well-being. With over 20 years of experience as a licensed clinical social worker, I share insights and invite expert guests who are passionate about making a positive difference. I started this podcast because I was frustrated with the often misleading or recycled information in social media involving self-help and the mental health field. My goal is to provide you with genuine, useful content that's educational and informative. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you find our conversations both enlightening and empowering. I'm glad you're here. Welcome to What Would Sabrina Say? I'm your host, Sabrina Dong, licensed clinical social worker. Today, I have with me here Larissa Franklin, Olympian on the Canadian softball team, keynote speaker. I'm so excited to have you here to talk about such an interesting topic for many around managing life day to day and also what's expected as an athlete.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be a good conversation. When you have a dream at 5 years old to go to the Olympics, no one tells you what it's going to take, right? Like it just starts as a dream. I saw softball players and figure skaters because I did two sports and I saw them both at the Olympic Games. So I knew that I wanted to go to the Olympics, but the things that I learned in such a short period of time around failure, around the pressures, I'm so grateful for it now because I do think it has shaped me. And like just the pressure, for example. So you think that the pressure comes when you're in the Olympic Games and you're playing in a bronze medal game and you're tied, which was our experience. But the pressure actually, for me, existed beforehand, before the Olympics, when you're trying to make the team, when you're trying to qualify your team for the Olympics. When, for us, it was COVID. We were in the middle of the pandemic. So you're trying not to get sick because that could just change everything. Once we were actually at the Olympics, I felt like I could fall back on my preparation and all of the work that I had put in. And of course, we still wanted to bring home a medal and there was still pressure in those moments, but there was some relief to be there. And I remember going into the Olympic bronze medal game and feeling so nervous. And I don't get nervous often in softball. I think because I did two sports, figure skating and softball, where there was so much pressure, I just find I don't get that nervous, but I could not speak before the Olympic bronze medal game. And we got to the cages for our warm up. And I remember grabbing the bat, holding it in my hands, and it was like all of the nerves just fell off. And I think that was due to the preparation. I knew once I had that bat in my hands, it was go time and I could get out of my head and I could just get into my body and I could just perform and do what I did best. So there is still that pressure, but the more prepared you can be for those moments, the more you can just let it fly in full send.
Shifting to be more present, right? That can be really hard when you have those pressures and being at the Olympics too and taking all that in. Were there moments where the stressors were there even at your peak performance or struggles with some of the pressures or expectations?
Yeah, you don't know what you need to do to go to the Olympics your first time. For me, I was just like, I'm going to do everything I possibly can to be prepared, to be able to help the team, to be able to hopefully bring home a medal. And so that meant pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. I've never struggled with having to push. But I didn't realize that I struggled with having to slow down and having to stop and knowing how much was too much. So before we got to the Olympics, about a year before, we were trying to qualify Team Canada and we had fitness testing. I didn't have the best results. And I knew that I was just like overwhelmed and I wasn't feeling like myself. And I had a conversation with my coach and he was like, if you keep pushing this much, you're going to get burnt out. And I was like, okay, whatever. Like, I'm not going to get burnt out. I love softball. And to me, burnout is something that happens to people that don't love what they're doing and they don't love their sport. Fast forward about 3 months and we were playing in the Olympic qualifier and I was looking at the picture. I was standing in the box and I was thinking to myself, I don't even care to get a hit right now. And I had lost all fire and all spice and all compete that I had that had made me the athlete that I was. And when I told our mental performance coach what I was feeling, and it wasn't that easy to tell her. It took a lot of courage because I really didn't know what I was feeling. But finally I tried to explain it and she said, it sounds like burnout. And I was like, nah, this isn't burnout. Like, this is way worse. I've heard this thing called depression. I don't like throwing that around because it's said so often. And then I guess what I came to find out was that it was burnout, that essentially I had pushed and pushed and pushed so hard, and it was impossible to meet my own expectations. It was impossible to meet my own standards. I'd set the bar so high that it was unachievable, and it was essentially presenting itself as more of that burnout. So I learned then that I had to chill. And I wish I could say that that was like my big moment. But I would say from 2019 until 2020, what year are we in? 2026, 2025, honestly. It was like 6 years, I feel like, of recovering from what I had pushed myself to do. There's a reason that high performance athletes are not normal, because they push to the extremes physically, mentally. And I think I had that experience of essentially not being able to handle it anymore.
You need to kind of do things differently. And what did that look like for you? Was there a period of self-care, slowing down, working with the mental performance coach?
Initially, it was just trying to reintroduce more things that gave me joy.
Uh-huh.
I had stopped going for hikes because if I went for a hike, that meant that I wasn't going to be fully recovered to do the specific training that I had to do for my sport. I stopped. I wouldn't necessarily go out and hang out with friends because that meant that I might not be as recovered. If it didn't make me better at softball, I stopped doing it. So that was the first step for me, was being like, what do I love and what do I need more of in my life? It doesn't have to make me a better softball player. And so I tried to reintroduce that stuff. I wish I could say it helped, but it really didn't, because after the Olympics, after I continued to raise that bar, it was about a year after the Olympics, and I would go and do an elite lift. It would be 12 p.m. I had already woken up. I had journaled. I had read. I did my morning routine. I basically had all these little things that I had to do because as an athlete, you're so regimented. But I would feel like I didn't do anything. And it's because I had just raised this bar of what a normal amount was, and it was unachievable. So for me, I had to actually take a really big look at my to-do list. That was a big thing for me, because I would have all these things on my to-do list. And if it wasn't something new in the way that, so like if it was something softball related, it didn't really count because I had always done that. If it was something like laundry or washing dishes, it didn't count because I should be doing that. It had to be something like me growing my business or me doing something completely new. And so I had to start to give credit to the things on my to-do list. Like, everything had to count more. And my therapist at the time, she actually said to me, not everybody does their laundry. You should give some credit to doing your laundry. And I think that for me was huge, was giving credit to more things in my life.
We all have those. It's just expected, like laundry or day-to-day routine. And always trying to do more better than and not counting those things can certainly lead to us experiencing burnout. And I was wondering, that seemed to be how you handled expectations from yourself. How about when it's coaches or the public? What's that like?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate that I've had a good support system growing up that pushed me just enough, but not too much. My parents were always the type of parents that the last thing they would say when I got out of the car for sports was, have fun. And the first thing they would say when I got in the car was, did you have fun? So yes, they pushed me in a way that if I started a sport, I wasn't allowed to quit it. But they were very supportive, and they've never pushed me beyond that. I think for me personally, it came from my own expectations. And I know that's not the case for everyone. I know a lot of people do have pressure from coaches and parents. But if I feel that, it's usually something that I'm making up in my own mind. So for example, we play in a tournament every single year called the Canada Cup. It's in Surrey, BC. It's a big tournament. Team Canada plays in it, and there's tons of fans. My parents and my family get to come out and watch. I remember after the Olympics playing in this tournament, and I'd never felt the pressure in this tournament. It was good pressure, I would say. I loved the good pressure of like, okay, this is a big moment. Let's do it. But after the Olympics, I felt the bar was so high. We had won an Olympic medal. I had now played on the team for 7 years. I had been a starter. I felt like the only way I had to go was down. I didn't feel like I could go up. Down was the only option. And that was the pressure that I was putting on myself. But as I was doing that, I also was making up these narratives that other people were thinking that too. And I knew that wasn't the case. I knew my family was just very happy to watch me play. But I also knew that if I wasn't playing, they were bummed. And that's what happened in that tournament. I think there was a game or two I didn't start, which was rare. And I remember now, not only am I not starting, but now I'm thinking about, oh, my family, so-and-so's coming to watch and I'm not on the field. So yeah, it stems from myself, but fortunately it wasn't coming from other people. It was things that I was making up in my own mind.
Those personal expectations or maybe beliefs about other people and what they expected from you. I'm assuming it was the same, right? And of course, people encourage that, but the pressures were there from yourself, right? And I think a lot of athletes experience that for sure. And I know you went through cancer treatments and you're a survivor. And yeah, just this time last year, posting about moving forward with your goals and not wanting it to change your lifestyle, right? That diagnosis and treatment. And what was that like for you in your journey? What tools helped you get through some tough days there?
Yeah, I mean, there's two things that are coming to mind. Obviously it was very shocking in the initial stages. I was very worried. It was distracting. All of the things that you would expect I was feeling. As the time went on and as I was processing it and even justifying why it was happening, I had I think I knew it was exactly what I had to go through. And as crazy as that sounds, I believed that it had to happen because I was in such a funk. And I don't think anybody needs to go through cancer or any big trauma to get out of a funk, but I needed something to kind of snap me out of it. And it forced me to slow down. I remember sitting on my couch, and at this time, I wasn't loving softball in the same way I had always loved it. I still was doing too much. I was still working for RBC and I was building my business as a keynote speaker, and I was going through a breakup at the time. Like, there was just so much still. And when I sat on my couch, I asked myself, what do I want to add back into my life right now? Because there's only so much I can do. And the thing that I wanted to do the most was go to practice and hang out with my friends and my teammates. And so that was a big reality check, that when my back is against the wall and I don't have all of these different demands and responsibilities, what do I really want to do? And I think that audit of your life can be so important because we just keep stacking things into our days and we keep adding to it. And when you really ask yourself that question, if I removed everything from my life, what would I actually want back into it? I think it's a big eye-opener for how you need to proceed. And sometimes that means saying no to things or dropping things and making big decisions and having hard conversations, but it can be really eye-opening. So that was the first thing for me, was just realizing that this time period in my life was going to help me moving forward. And then I realized pretty early on into treatment. So I did 3 months of chemo, which was, I think it was 3 months. Every 3 weeks, I got a dose of treatment or chemo for 4 cycles. And I realized it's like my athlete mentality just kicked in right away. Within the span of 10 days, I moved out of my condo into a new one, obviously. I went through fertility treatments because I realized that your eggs can get damaged through chemo. So I went through that. And then I started chemotherapy. Even my parents and my family, they were like, are you okay? But I think in that, I just knew how to do one task at a time. That athlete mentality of like, okay, what's next? And it was do that task. And then once I completed that task, it was like, what next? And so that's something that really stuck out to me. But at the same time, I was incredibly grounded through it. I just was, I think, because I knew how to breathe and I knew how to meditate and I knew how to take things one moment at a time. And I knew that There's only so much you can handle, and there's only so much that is in your control. As athletes, we talk about that all the time. Control what you can control. And so much of that was outside of my control that it was just like, okay, I can't control this, but what can I control and what can I do? So my goals through chemo, drink a lot of water and read a book between every single chemo treatment. Like that was it, which was crazy as an athlete because we have these big ambitious goals. And I was like, no, those are the two things that I can control that I think will be the most beneficial to my recovery. And then one other thing was just, I wanted to surround myself by people who gave off good energy. You know, those people that you're around them and you just like, they're exuding it versus the ones that you might be around and you can just feel it kind of like sucking your energy a little bit. There was going to be none of that. I knew that every single piece of positive energy frequency within the universe, whatever you believe in, I was going to do whatever it took. So yeah, it was really cool to see that athlete piece of it come out in such a challenging time.
And it sounds too that your support system just played a big role for you as well. And when you talk about positive people around, this energy that kind of make things light and bring joy, but it sounds like you know, that was really important for you in that stage of recovery as well.
Yeah. And honestly, I'm surprised I haven't spoken to that because that's like the biggest thing I tend to speak to is I went through treatment in Toronto, Ontario, and my family's out west in Vancouver, BC area. So when it first started happening, my thoughts, I was like, oh my gosh, who's going to drive me to treatment? What if I feel too sick? What if I can't cook myself food? And I was very worried about that, as independent as I am. But I have a good group of teammates here, and I can't even say enough how much they did, from just checking in on how I was feeling to opening up their home for me to just come over and they'll cook for me if I need it, to coming to appointments. I genuinely, like, the experience would not have been what it was if I didn't have them. And I think anyone that has to go through something like that or something challenging in general, I really hope that they have a support system or can find 1-2 people that will be there, because I think as humans, we're meant to connect. One of the things I realized in all of my questioning after the Olympics, because I went to a pretty nihilistic place, but I kept asking myself, what is the point of life? And I don't mean that, I mean, at times it got dark, but I really was like, what is the point? Why are we here? What are we doing? And I started asking, very existential. And the one thing I came back to after asking that over and over again is that we are here to give and receive love. And it didn't get any deeper than that. That was the final place I got to. So once I started going through treatment and once all of this happened, it stood out even more that people are giving me so much love. And at the same time, I felt like I had so much love to give. And that was really cool, just to see that when we are at our rawest and things are the hardest, that is really what comes out. And that's what made, it's crazy, like that's what made my cancer experience so special.
Really brought you, sounds like, to a vulnerable place too, right? And to be able to receive that love.
That was hard. I mean, I think I'm talking so much about how being an athlete served me, but I think as an athlete too, you are so good at masking things and pushing through pain and just moving forward, right? That I had to sit with a lot of stuff and get honest with myself. And that was something that was extremely uncomfortable. But the growth that I made in those moments of sitting with it, of sitting in silence, of not trying to fix anything, but just being with it, I think it was just a gift. The growth that I was able to make through that challenge. And that's why I love obstacles, because I think they present such an incredible opportunity to grow. And so even when this happened, I was like, oh, heck yeah, like, let's go. Like, I knew that it was going to be such an incredible growth opportunity. And of course, my mind went to worst case scenario. But I also knew that if I was so lucky to get through it, that I was going to make the most of it.
Looking back, what did you learn about yourself that surprised you the most?
I think through that, and just through the last 5 years since the Olympics, I always knew I had a softer, more sensitive, more vulnerable side. I've always loved poetry. I journal a lot. I'm very reflective, but very few people saw that. What most people saw was someone who's very lighthearted and fun and going to be entertaining and kind of that side of things. And having been on the team for 7-ish years, I felt like I couldn't become anything but that. I had to be that person every single time I came to the team because that's what people knew me as. And I think the cancer experience really allowed me to show more of that side of me. I felt like it did. I think people always would have welcomed that, but vulnerability is hard. That's one of the things that I am the most grateful for, is that it allowed me to show a different side of me, not only to others, but even to myself. And now I feel a lot more comfortable showing both sides, and I see the value in it. It's something that I'm super grateful for.
Practicing being more vulnerable and having those other parts of you show, right? The creative side, the, side maybe of expressing different emotions and being able to be there.
It's crazy we put more weight on certain things over other things, or I did, I guess. I didn't see as much value in the vulnerability piece or the sensitive side of it. If I was outgoing and I made people laugh and I made people smile, that gave me an immediate response that I was doing something right. But if I was more sensitive or soft, or I didn't get that same immediate response that I felt like I needed. So I think part of it was just getting more comfortable with myself, getting more aligned with who I am, and being unapologetically leaning into that.
What would you suggest or recommend to people that are athletes out there in training, college athletes who maybe go through those tough days or mental health struggles? What would you recommend?
Rest. I think that's something that we all can be better at, is just figuring out that rest component. But there's so many more layers to that than just you need to rest more. But I think love the challenge and love the obstacles. Open your eyes up to it, open your arms, let it in. Whatever challenge you experience, just be open to it. Through the cancer experience, that's something that really stuck out to me that I did well, and that comes from being an athlete, is I was just so curious. Every corner of the experience, I was like, what's it going to be like to lose my hair? What is chemo going to be like? I loved the challenge of thinking about having to go through chemo and make a national team. To me, that was exciting. And that's what fueled me of, heck yeah, let's do this. I almost needed that because I'd been on the team now for so many years that it was upping the ante. So I think if you can be curious about the obstacles that are in front of you and the challenges that are in front of you, it makes it a lot less scary. I said to myself, curiosity calms fear. And I think if you're ever feeling scared about anything, if you can just be curious about it, it will allow you to continue learning and to move through it.
So just not resisting things and just leaning in and being curious and learning about yourself even further.
For sure. Just ride the wave.
Thanks so much for your time today, Larissa, and I hope you have a wonderful season.
Thank you.
Excited to watch you in your own journey and as a keynote speaker, and just appreciate sharing the advice today for many of those who are in the sport or going through something difficult at this time. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. Thanks.